Howdy from Houston, everyone. My name is Chris Poldoian. I'm based here in Houston, Texas, and I'm excited to talk to y'all about today's conference, which is German Gems Beyond Riesling. Today's conference is put on by Wines of Germany, and I'm currently working as an ambassador for Wines of Germany. I run a podcast called By the Glass. You can source By the Glass wherever you source your audio content on Apple, Spotify, and I teamed up with Wines of Germany earlier this year to create some educational episodes of my podcast, kind of showcasing different producers, importers, and sommeliers within the German wine community. And from that came the idea to do today's conference, which is based in this broad understanding that we all have of Germany's specialty within Riesling. I think if you're attending this conference today, you know that Germany makes some pretty badass Rieslings. But what we wanted to do was highlight some of those other grapes coming out of Germany. There are amazing red wines as well as white wines that come from Germany. And today what we're going to do is we're going to chat with 3 different winemakers about these kind of alternative grape varieties, these German gems. So we're going to start by chatting with Hild. We'll start in the northern part of Germany in the upper Mosel. This is the kind of lesser known region of Mosel right near the Luxembourg border. We're going to chat with Eunice about Elbling, which is this, I don't want to quite say indigenous grape, but a very traditional grape in the Mosel. And we'll chat with him about what his winery is doing to preserve this grape's rich history. And we're also going to taste Müller-Catoir's Scheurebe. You'll notice that with today's tasting, we're actually going to chat with each winemaker about 2 different wines, one of their own and one from another producer in Germany. Rarely do we get the opportunity to chat with a winemaker about another producer's wine. So that'll be really, really fun. We'll start with Eunice tasting that Elbling and that Scheurebe. So then we're going to chat with Lisa Neubauer at Dautel Estate about the white Pinot varieties coming out of Germany. We're going to chat with her about Dautel Estate's Weissburgunder, and we're also going to chat with her about Schlossmühlenhof's Grauburgunder, which is located in the Rheinhessen. I'm really excited to chat about those 2 Pinot varieties. Pinot Blanc is Germany makes more Pinot Blanc than any other country in the world, and Germany also ranks 3rd for Pinot Gris production internationally. Really, really exciting stuff. And then we're going to finish with some red wine. We're going to chat with Heike Darding over at Weingut Darding in the Pfalz. We're going to chat with her about the Pinot Meunier that her winery makes, as well as Ziereisen's Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir coming out of Boden. So we're going to start with some white wine, finish with some red. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy. Eunice, I'm so excited to be here with you virtually, tasting these wines. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, really well.
So you had mentioned before we started recording that you're about to embark on harvest, right? Harvest starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the harvest starts. The whole year we worked for this. Yeah,
that's wild.
I'm happy. I'm happy with this.
How was this year in terms of like?
Yeah, so it was like a perfect year, but we need a little bit more water. But we have sunshine in April. The most sunshine in April since beginning of the measurement, since over 100 years.
Wow.
Global warming is there, also is here. Definitely, we begin 14 days before normal harvest.
Wow.
Also it's coming earlier. Yeah, also.
Well, I'm glad that 2020 was good for something. It sounds like it was good for Elbling grapes. Maybe not good for humans, but 2020 was good for at least grapes in the upper Mosel. Cool. Well, this panel is an opportunity for us to look into some of the other grapes of Germany. I think most people that are attending this conference are familiar with Riesling. A lot of us love it. I love Riesling, but what's really exciting about this discussion is we're going to be talking with different winemakers and tasting different wines that are made with other grapes. And your winery, Hild, is considered to be kind of like the benchmark for this grape Elbling, which you know, in the Middle Ages was the most widely planted grape in all of Germany. It wasn't until the 1700s that, you know, there was that edict that said that Riesling had to be the grape of the Mosel, but across all of Germany, Elbling was the grape. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, that is completely true. It was like 3 or 4 wines was Elbling. Also it was 75% in Germany. Also it was the main grape. Mm-hmm. But that has a reason. The farmers and everything has to pay taxes in form of agriculture products because they don't have money. And Elbling can make a big yield on a small area. That was basically the tax grape. They paid the church and they pay the taxes with this grape. And it can make a lot of grapes on a small area. That was the reason, because everybody has this Elbling grape.
So it was a high-yielding, high-production grape variety.
Yeah, for pay taxes, yeah. But the high yield was also hand in hand with low quality. Really, it was like acid water, I think, before global warming, by the way. The schoolers and the church were not happy with that because they only get the shit. Can I say that? Shit?
Yeah, let's do it, for sure.
And then they decided to pull out all the Elbling vines in whole Germany by law and plant Riesling, because then it can't happen that we get so much shit. But
because it was so high yielding and production wasn't very good, vines got ripped out and replaced with something else.
Exactly, it was Riesling at that moment. And at this moment, we belong to Luxembourg, our area here, our small, forgotten Upper Mosel area, and they have no political influence here. And that is the reason because Elbling is still here. And in the rest of Germany, don't exist.
So you mentioned the Upper Mosel, this kind of forgotten area. I think a lot of people might be familiar with the Mosel, at least through the prism of the Middle Mosel. I think the Middle Mosel is how most people think about Mosel. They think of Peaceport.
And Upper Mosel and Middle Mosel. Yeah.
So how is the Upper Mosel, or as y'all say in Germany, the Obermosel, right? How is that area different from the rest of the Mosel?
First we begin with the soil. Geologically, we belong to the Champagne and Burgundy. It's called Paris Basin, and we have limestone soil. It is and really dark earth, and limestone. That is our thing. And 50 kilometers up the Mosel, it begins the Rhine slate mountains, and the rest of the Mosel is completely slate, except us. we are a little bit special. It's unique.
So no slate in the Upper Mosel. It's mostly defined by the same sort of limestone that we associate with Chablis or Champagne, parts of Sancerre.
Exactly. That is exactly the same. Geologically, we don't belong to Germany or to the Mosel. We are like France more.
So even though, I mean, for some people viewing this Upper Mosel, we're actually further south. We're south of Middle Mosel. We're south of our, right near the Luxembourg border. Temperature-wise, is there much of a difference there? Even though you're further south, is it any warmer or is it cooler?
It is normally it is a little bit warmer, but that is not much. You can't count it.
It's more that geological difference. It's that limestone.
Yeah, the soil, the terroir. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, we've been talking about the terroir a little bit. Let's taste what we're drinking right now, which is the Elbling Trocken. You make several different bottlings, but this one is the just Trocken. And I opened this about 45 minutes ago, and it's opened up really, really nicely. There's like a really pretty floral character, and you do get that like limestoney minerality. It's super fun.
Yes.
Cheers, yeah. So what are some of your normal like food pairings with this wine?
With this wine, I would say shellfish, also all of the shellfish and oysters and Elbling. That is a pairing.
Hell yeah.
That have to be together.
You don't even need a mignonette. You could just pour a little bit of this Elbling in the oyster and you're set. You're good to go.
Yeah, we put sometimes some of the sparkling Elbling in the oyster and slurp it.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm all about that. You love to see it. You mentioned sparkling wine. You guys do make a sect with this variety.
Yeah.
Do you guys, as a winemaker, do you approach sparkling wine production with Elbling any differently than you approach still production with Elbling?
Yes, we make a special wine for the sparkling wine production because it has to be a lower alcohol level, because we have a second fermentation in the bottle, and there are like 2% of alcohol coming plus.
Oh wow!
And yeah, and then it goes in the fermentation with 10.5, 11, and comes out with 12.5, and have to measure on the yeast for 9 months minimum. It is like champagne method.
Yeah. Which is important because a lot of sparkling wine coming out of Germany, it can be made traditional method, or it could be made Prosecco like method or tank method, Charmat.
Tank method, yeah. But we only make the champagne method.
And how long have y'all been making that sect?
How long?
How long, yeah. For how long have you been making sparkling wine?
Also, it was before my...
okay.
Before
a while ago.
Also, 30 years ago.
Totally. Wow. Which, Germany has a long history of sparkling wine, right? I mean, Krug, Heidsieck, I mean, all of those producers, they were originally Germans. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this wine is just so fun. It's funny when I talk to your importer over at Von Boden, when I talk to like PJ, who's my rep, he always describes this wine as almost like Muscadet or Chocolat or other really high acid, food friendly wines. I mean, I think the same reasons that so many people love Riesling, that high acid, food friendly character, you find that in this for sure.
Elbling, it's one of the mother grapes, it's 2,000 years tradition here and over 3,000, I think, in Europe.
Wow.
It is one of these grapes where the other grapes coming from. Like, it has an appreciation deserved, I think.
Which, I think for a lot of Americans, at least, Hild is synonymous with Elbling. There aren't many Elblings being brought to the United States. I think y'all represent, over like the vast majority of most Elbling that's imported to the US.
I think so, yes.
I don't want to throw out any exact numbers here, but it's a lot. But in terms of that like approach to education, there seems to be a lot of like just trying to educate people about Elbling. What are some of the ways that you do that both at the winery and then through like social media or in your travels to the US? Like what's some of the approaches you would take to that education?
In the US or here in Germany?
Maybe both, because you've traveled to the US, yeah?
In Germany, yeah, but not for wine reasons. And then Corona came, otherwise I would travel to the States this year, but shit. So here in Germany, it's really special because here everybody knows Elbling and has in the head like that grape. It's nothing. It tastes high acidity and tastes like water. Really bad reputation here. And we have to when we have a tasting and the Elbling are on the first. And then the Burgundies came, like Pinot Blanc or Pinot Gris, what we make. Or the people like starting with the Pinot Gris or Pinot Blanc. And we say, no, you don't get it from us. You have to try the Elbling first. That is like, and they are tasting it here and saying like, whoa, that is Elbling. Because this opinion, it's in the head, it's 30 years old. But at the moment, we put the yield very low, like 6,000 liters per hectare. Then we do the malolactic fermentation, but we put sulfur on very late. Then you don't taste this like milk notes, don't have it. And yeah.
So mallow, you guys use mallow to kind of soften the wine just a touch, to kind of round it out a little bit?
Yeah, and not, ich meine, normal, I don't know the word, deacidification.
Deacidification.
Yeah, it's very stressful for the wine because a lot of CO2 it's coming and a lot of foam, and you have to swirl it, and it's very stressful for the wine. The normal malolactic fermentation, it's better for the wine. It's like a natural process. It is bacterial, so it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing wine. It's so bright. It's got such like density of character while still being light on its feet. Super fun. I think it might be good for us to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about the second wine that we're tasting. So what's really great about this panel is rarely do you get the opportunity to taste with a winemaker a wine from a different producer entirely. And this is really cool because both of us have this bottle of Müller-Catoir Scheurebe. This is the MC bottling, the MC Hammer. This is really fun because Scheurebe as a grape is relatively young. I think that it was crossed in like 1917. So compared to
100 years plus minus. It is like a real baby.
A baby, especially compared to the Elbling. So this is really fun. You know, I would just love to hear, do you taste a lot of Scheurebe where you are in the Obermosel?
No, at Obermosel not, but I learned at the Nahe. Also there was a trainee at the Nahe at Kugerumpf, Weingut Kugerumpf. They have Scheurebe, but I don't have much experience in Scheurebe. Also I'm honestly.
Well, you know, something that I always love about Scheurebe is that just super generous like aroma that you get. Like you stick your nose in the glass and you get like a fruit salad. There's like so many different things going on in there. You know, really like exotic fruit. It's just super generous aromatically. What's interesting though is both of these wines are classified as Trocken. They're both dry wines, which has grown in popularity as a category within the US. I think we're seeing a lot of like US consumers beginning to understand that if they see that word on the label, they know they're getting something dry. Okay. And you were saying that, you know, Trocken is really all that you make, right?
Yeah, it's like 95% of the production, or 98% it's Trocken. Yeah.
You know, the other thing that really stands out to me is that, you know, Scheurebe often is used to make a sweet wine just because it gets so ripe on the vine, which seems to be the opposite sort of thing that you have with Elbling. I mean, you can leave Elbling on the vine for a really, really long time, and it's rarely going to get to the level of physiological ripeness that Scheurebe does.
It don't have this range. Also, it don't have this range, Elbling. But Elbling has a problem with mole because they're really big grapes and pressing each other against and popping, and then it's going to mole. Also, the mole is coming when they it squeezes its own while growing.
So the grapes themselves are so dense in each that they just press into one another. Is it botrytis an issue where you are in Obermosel?
I know. Also, botrytis, it's too juicy. It's not trying fast enough. You know. It's berry and it's meaty inside. Meaty. Also, and it's not trying so fast that only botrytis is there. After that, all the second infections are coming, and you don't want them.
You know, something that I hear from so many different wineries around the world is this topic of global warming. And you've already referenced it a couple of times in our conversation, you know, how global warming is affecting, you know, harvests, how it's affecting grape production, how it's affecting the way the wine, you know, tastes in the glass. And in the case of Scheurebe, for sure, I mean, you know, they have struggled retaining acidity even in cooler years. What are some of the ways that you're seeing, you know, global warming play out where you are in Obermosel?
We have at the moment it's a Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc, and we have problems with too low acidity. Also it is a problem, and high alcohol, also high sugar and too high alcohol levels at the end. We have last year a Pinot Gris with 14% alcohol, 14 naturally.
And something that I know y'all really champion are, you know, the older vines that you have. And those older vines, they never really reach a level of physiological ripeness where you have to worry about, too high in alcohol. You make a cuvee called Zane Coma Null, which is literally like never gets above 10% alcohol. That's where the name comes from, right?
Yeah, also last year it has 10.5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that. It is an old vineyard in my back. It is a single vineyard wine, only 1,000 liters per year. And it is with a single pole, also with a very intensive handwork job. And you have to carry the grapes with a backpack out because it's terraced. Also it is terraced steep hill. I don't know. I can show it. It's in my bag. Can I go with it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it, but just follow me here. 1 second.
I love it. A little off-roading.
So I just changed the camera.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
There.
Yeah.
You see?
Holy guacamole. Look at that.
There is it. I'm the single guy there. As back in the days, the whole hill was planted, But now I'm the only one. Because you don't get much money for Elbling. Also, at the end of the day, it's a lot of work and not much money, but we are like a little bit crazy with that. And my grandfather planted it. I never can pull it out.
So, I mean, you're talking a little bit about kind of the future of Elbling to a degree. I mean, you've got vineyards that are very hard to access, and from those vineyards, you're making a wine that can be very hard to sell. I mean, what do you see as the future of this grape? Is it more people planting it? Is it more appreciation for these wines? Where do you see things going?
Although the people are not more planting it because you with the Burgundy grapes you get more money off the bottle, and also it's not getting more, but more specific and more quality. Also every Elbling what's on the market here in the region, it's good. Also it's good plus. And at the moment it's like a little bit like a revival of Elbling because young people are beginning to drink wine. And with the old grapes, with the ancient grapes, on autochthon grape varieties, it's getting more. Also on the whole world, it's not like you have only the new is always better. No, back to the roots.
Yeah, I think people, there's an appreciation for grapes that speak to a specific place, less maybe of an emphasis on just working with international varieties. Jumping back to the Müller-Catoir real quick, this wine is just so expressive aromatically. What do you envision eating with this wine? What do you think are some good food pairings?
Yeah, I tasted it before, and I think with Asian food, it pairs very well, and maybe it can be a little bit sweeter for Asian food, like try off.
Yeah.
Or with an ragu from poulet, as a poulet ragu from, I think, but a spicy one, like not a spicy poulet ragu, something like that.
Yeah, we have a lot of Vietnamese food here in Houston, and to me, this would work so well with that. Or even like a ceviche, something that has like bright, fresh citrus, maybe some fresh fruit in there as well. Like that to me, there's a restaurant here in town that does a ceviche that has like a little bit of mango in it, and then there's a fuck ton of lime juice, and that to me with this would just be so great. Well, Eunice, is there anything else you want people to know about other grapes from Germany, drinking beyond just Riesling? Is there anything else you want people to know?
Yeah, also we have a great, I can only say from my perspective, we have a great Morio Muscat. It was common in the Pfalz in the 70s, but only for sweet wine. Here in Germany, it's called like ein Büchsenöffner. It's like we make a dry Secco of that, and it's like, you know, the cocktail Hugo. It's like with elderflower syrup.
Okay.
Elderflower syrup and Prosecco normally.
Okay.
But the Morel Muscat Secco from us has this elderflower aroma still inside. Also inside because it's like lychee and exotic.
Yeah.
Shit. And maybe drink a Morel Muscat if you get one on the list. Also, let's
Hell
try
yeah.
it.
Awesome.
It is Scheurebe sort of.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us on the eve of your harvest. Are you doing anything tonight? One last hurrah before the work gets going?
No. Now everything is coming together, and tomorrow we have to start early. Just
so a good night's sleep.
Be a little bit reasonable today.
Take some melatonin and drink the rest of that bottle, and then start early in the morning. There you go.
Or one bottle more, I don't know.
There we go. There we go.
Can I say thank you to Stephen Bitterwolf from Boden, because he with us together, he makes this Elbling thing more common, really more common, and popularity is raising because of him. Also, I want to say thank you that he is spreading the Elbling in the US.
Let's shout out Stephen von Boden, all those importers that do so much work to, you know, make these wines available in the US and really champion these producers. So hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Hopefully see you in the US next year. We can crush some oysters with some Elbling. It'll be great.
That would be so cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Looking forward to this. Cheers. Take care.
Yeah. We're chatting with Lisa Neubauer. She's with Dautel Estate. We're in Württemberg. So we've gone from the Obermosel with Eunice over at Hild down south. We're in one of the southernmost regions of Germany now. And we're going to chat about the Pinot varieties, which I think is a really exciting thing. Germany makes the most Pinot Blanc or Weissburgunder out of any country in the world and ranks third for Pinot Gris or Grauburgunder. And so those are the two grapes that we're going to talk about in this particular recording. We're going to chat about these white Pinot varieties and kind of what's going on in Germany. And I'm really excited to talk to you and taste your Weissburgunder. We've got it here. We've got the 2017 Weissburgunder, and then later on in the recording, we're going to jump in with the Schlossmühlenhof from Rheinhessen. So what's really exciting here is we're talking about two really cool regions. Cool in the sense that they're exciting, maybe not cool in the sense of temperature. You can maybe get into that more, but we're talking about Württemberg, where you are, and then we're going to talk about Rheinhessen. But maybe we can kind of start with talking about Württemberg, because it's a region I love, and I know it's a region that a lot of other people that follow German wines love. But maybe you can give us a little bit of info about kind of where the region is. We've already said it's from the south, but historically, it's kind of belonged to France. It's right on the border with Switzerland. It's part of the Jura mountain range. There's a whole lot going on there. Can you just kind of give us the 411?
Yeah, Württemberg is, you already said it, it's in the south, really the south of Germany. It's our whole region, it's called Baden-Württemberg, but we are separated into the wine regions like Baden and Württemberg. Baden belongs to the warmer regions officially, like France and Spain, and Württemberg belongs officially to the cooler regions. So for us, the most important thing is we are known for our red wine. We've got an amazing amount of red varieties here, but actually it's not that important for us because for our wine, for example, we have 50 white, 50 red. And we've got this specialty that we've got 4 different big soils. I think that's the most interesting thing. We've got gypsum, we've got shell limestone, we've got colored marl. It's really cool. And we've got Schilfsandstein. There isn't another word in English. I'm so sorry. And the soils show us the differences here in Württemberg. We've got extremely steep slope vineyards, mostly terraced. We've got clean vineyards. We've got so much diversity here. And I think that's the passion that comes with it. And we've got the hugest wine critics ever, because we are the region where the most wine is consumed.
Really?
So we're normally drinking all the wines ourselves. So no, if you do something wrong, you can hear it immediately from your granddad or your aunt or your sister. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's
So for
what
people
you
that
have
are
mentioned.
looking at the recording behind you, is that
Yeah,
those sleeped is that those
yeah,
steep
that's true.
terraces that you're referring to?
Yeah, yeah, that's one of our steep terraces. It's called Wurmberg, which is warm mountain translated.
All right.
Normally on the side here you have got our Neckar, our river, and these are completely shell limestone. And that's this Riesling and Chardonnay, which is harvested here. And it's pretty hard harvesting these things. It's not like, it's really climbing a mountain.
So, I mean, Württemberg, you said, sometimes gets combined with Baden. That region collectively is known as the Swabia to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned that,
yeah.
so you mentioned that red wine is kind of what the region as a whole is known for, but how would you compare the white wines coming out of southern Germany with the white wines coming out of northern Germany? Maybe not varietally speaking, but just like stylistically speaking.
I think our strength is the white wine, because we've got so many different soils, and we're a bit more elegant, we're a bit more floral. We've got a lot of fruit in it, but it's not this perfumated fruit. I think my favorite style is here really in the white wine style is minerality, it's crispiness, it's freshness, and that's something our soil and our habit comes on. I think that's most important. We've got so many high acidity levels in white wines in the north, and for us, it's the harmony between acidity and fruit and floral arrangement.
So, you know, something that's really cool, Lisa, you, previous to your current role, you were a sommelier. You've got your sommelier certification. You've worked in Michelin-starred restaurants. You know, when you think about the wines of Germany from your perspective as a sommelier, how do you think about the wines of Württemberg in terms of food pairings? I mean, we can talk about your wine specifically, this Weissburgunder. You know, it's a very delicious wine. Let's taste it together real quick. But
yeah, sure.
You know, it's just like you said, that balance of acidity, texture, floral character, you know, maybe like a touch of lees. But what do you think about in terms of like food pairings for this?
As a sum, for me, this is the easiest way for food pairing. It comes all over seafood, for example. I love scallops and Pinot Blanc. And I made a warm octopus salad with a slightly vinaigrette, and I'm so in love with this pairing. And for me, there's so many things you can just, if I'm just going in my mind, it would be vitello tonato if you wanted for the entrance. I love it with the tarn sauce. That would be so great because it's got the fruitiness. The acidity is not too high, and you can compare a dish and you can just push it up. It's not like the wine builds all over or the dish builds all over the wine. I think it's a great harmony. And normally, if I'm referred to a disharmony dish, like I want to build a concha, it would be for the dessert. It would be a sorbet. If you're really going with fresh sorbets and a dry white wine on the at the finish, I love dry wines for dessert. I'm such a fan of it. And I think this one builds a balance between fruit and dryness.
Totally. So again, based on your experience working as a sommelier where you were pouring wines from all over the world, you know, Germany is one of many countries that works with these Pinot varieties. You know, in our glass right now, we have a Weissburgunder, a Pinot Blanc. And most people listening to this or watching this recording, you know, they probably are familiar with Pinot Blancs from France. They're probably familiar with them from the United States, and also Pinot Bianco from Italy. How do you kind of distinguish German Pinot Blanc from, you know, those other countries that are making it? What makes Weissburgunder different?
I think if you compare Pinot Blanc, especially with France, so we're calling Alsace, if you're right, I think we are more fine, we are more elegant. It becomes with the soil, of course, but I think our style is a bit more focused. Alsace is a bit much more brightness, it's a bit more full-bodied in my opinion. Of course, of the style of the Alsace, you've got much more bright fruitiness, not this focused fruitiness. That's because I prefer it for food pairing before German Pinot Blanc for sure. And if we're talking about Italian, I think we would talk about South Tyrol. And there you've got much straighter, much more minerality, much carrier soil. And for us, there's more fruitiness. And I think we've got a good balance between these two regions. It's like we've got the fruitiness a bit lower from the Altes, and we've got the straight and the elegant type, which is known in Italy and South Tyrol. And this compared is going to be a very interesting and great wine. In my glass, it's 2019 already. You've got 2017. It's our entrance wine, and it ages perfectly. And that's because of the balance between, for example, Alsace and South Tyrol.
Yeah, I think that's something really interesting, talking about the aging potential of these wines, because Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Weissburgunder, Grauburgunder, they're not typically wines that you think about aging. I think a lot of US consumers, love and thirst after, vintage Riesling. We look at these like older vintages of Burgundy, but talk to me a little bit about aging potential there with these varieties. What's some of the like flavors and textures that develop over time?
I think the fruitiness, that's because I think it's because of our soils, it gets a bit more concentrated. You don't have these overripe feelings like this apricot gelée or something like that. It's not that marmalade tone you've got in the yellow fruits, but the minerality of the soils keeps the fruitiness a bit more elegant. I think it's the classic development of lady in a little black dress to my mom wearing a little black dress with her skirt. She's always elegant, even if she's aging. And I think it's the best description. You can lay them down. You're drinking 17. We tried 12 a few weeks ago. Of course, it's different, but it's so interesting. Even for some, it's the most interesting thing. If you try wines, normally you would age it with much more acidity because it's okay. It's the easiest way or the safest way. But with something like that, you've got minerality, a bit of acidity and fruitiness. This becomes interesting. This is something for me as a som, I want to dig into it because I know aged Riesling. I love it, of course. And I know aged Pinot Noir, and I love it too. But the thing you cannot imagine, or you cannot compare to, is something like Weissburgunder. We've got in our top range a Weissburgunder S, which is 1.5 years on the lease in oak. And we tasted the first thing like 2011, 1 week ago, and you're so thirsty after that. And that's for food pairing, for reflections. It's so amazing.
Very cool. You mentioned oak there on some of your top bottlings, and Weissburgunder, Pinot Blanc in Germany has kind of gone through a bit of a change stylistically. In the past, it was a variety that saw a lot of oak. People were making it in a much rounder style. And I'd say maybe in the past like 10 years or so, we've seen a movement towards making more linear, more, I don't want to say precise, but, sharper wines that are defined more by acidity and less by oak character. Fewer people are taking that oak kind of route, and more people are making wine in a more reductive style. Dautel is a winery that, at least for the wine that we're drinking, this one here, this I think is all stainless steel. And kind of what's the approach that you've seen both as a sommelier as well as a representative of Dautel with oak usage in Weissburgunder?
I think it's easy to say. It depends on what do you want to drink. For us, this Riesling Gutswein, also what you're drinking right here, it's drinky. You want to drink it, it's crispy, it's fresh, it's easy going. You're sitting outside on the terrace with a little bit of food, a little bit of finger food, and just drinking a bottle or two with your friends. Yeah, that's easy going. If we're going even further, we've got our Ortswein, which means it's based on the soil. It's got a bit more complicated. There is oak in it, but it's a smooth oak. We're going for the soil, we're going for gypsum. And after that, there's our higher level. Yeah, of course there's oak, but it depends on the way you use the oak. We all know that. You can have this classic full body, round, big thing, which is a bit more plump. But I think also Weissburgunder has the possibility to show different styles. And I think our range is a good show. Easy drinking, a bit more into the soil, a bit more complicated, a bit more complex. And then you've got this thing, our Weissburgunder S with oak, 1.5 years on the lease. It's so interesting how it develops on time and with the air. And I think this is a great point. I think there's so many different styles, and you can all make it in one winery, of course, if you're into it. Yeah. And that's what makes it interesting. I think everyone has just tried, in Germany has just tried their Weissburgunder. For our, there are some wineries that make Weissburgunder GGs, which is the Großes Gewächs from the VDP. And this is one of the hugest wines you can find in Germany. So why not? I think it's so amazing if you can see something like that, something so smooth, so easy drinking, and then so complex and so intense. I think that shows such a great variety.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So, something that we've talked about a little bit is, your winemaker. You referenced him earlier, Christian Dautel, right? The next generation that's taken over the winery. And he's a really unique character insofar as, his time working at wineries all over the world. I mean, he spent harvests in the Willamette Valley. He worked with Lafon in Burgundy. He spent time in South Africa, Australia, Austria. How do all of those international experiences translate into Württemberg?
It's easier to say than you think, because Chris is a very, very easygoing type. I think it's great if you talk to him. It's all with passion. It's all with power. And I think the most important thing is getting to know people, getting to know different styles. It's the thing you work together. But the most impressive work he had was in Burgundy. We are so near Burgundy for us. It's like, it depends on the soil and it depends on the grape varieties like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And he was so focused. He was so completely focused on these grape varieties. We both love them. Oh my gosh, me and Pinot Noir is like biggest love of all time. But the difference is how to work with it. I think that's what became a big friendship to Burgundy for him, a big passion. And if we're talking about our styles, we're always talking about, that's something I would drink in Burgundy. That's something, he wants to compare it, not like I've got the same quality, but yeah, I want to do something exactly like that. And I think it all depends on his character on his own. He's like so focused on what he wants to achieve. And so he takes out the people he meets and the characters he meets there and puts it straight into his heart. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about that how important Burgundy was in his wine education and the history of Württemberg as once belonging to the same region as Burgundy. During the Holy Roman Empire, it was, the monks of Burgundy that brought, Pinot over to Germany. So it's interesting to see those parallels there. Super fun to see.
Yeah.
So Dautel also makes a fair amount of sparkling wine. You've talked about Chardonnay that you make, Riesling. We're currently drinking the Weissburgunder, but you also make a fair amount of sparkling wine. Is there a different mentality that you take to sparkling wine production versus still wine production?
No, I don't think it's a different mentality, because we've got the same passion for each wine we make. It depends all on the vineyard. We're not so focused on vinification and on the vineyard, because this is where it all starts. We're doing 2 sparkling as our Riesling sparkling. We're talking about 18 months on tirage, and we're doing our Pinot Noir sparkling, where we're talking about 37 months on tirage.
And for people that are listening, is that a Blanc de Noir or is that a rosé?
No, Blanc de Noir.
Blanc de Noir, okay.
Yeah, that's, for us, it's very important. But these 2 styles are just like, we want to have some sparkling. Chris said something like, sparkling is for every day. And that's what we're thinking about that. Of course, he has the same passion, even if you compare our Pinot Noir sparkling to our Pinot Noir in the GG variation. It's the same passion. You cannot compare the vinification. You cannot compare the way, it's not like this little child who's not really loved by anyone, but it's like, it's the whole family, and we treat everyone well. So I think sparkling and still wine doesn't depend.
Hell yeah. Well, fun. Well, we've tasted this Weissburgunder from y'all, and now I think would be a great time to jump into the Boden Funk Grauburgunder
why not?
from Schlossmühlenhof. So for people that are watching this, you can probably see this wine doesn't look like it was filtered. This looks like, there's a fair bit of sediment at the bottom, This is a fun wine. Natural wine lovers out there, I think we've seen a movement towards less intervention in German wine, or at least more exposure to these styles of wine coming out of Germany over the past 10 years. I can speak to the American audience. You can probably speak to the German audience very well. But we've seen more and more wines coming out of Germany, specifically like the more southern regions of Germany, that are made with low intervention. Are you finding that wines in Germany are embracing these techniques, or do you find that winemakers in Germany are embracing these techniques?
I think you can see a development, that's true, but it's not like a big focus, because the work we are doing is so close to nature already. It doesn't depend if it's filtered or not. We were talking about wines, natural wines like that with a colleague of us, and I was talking to Marcus, also a winemaker here in Württemberg, and he's doing a lot of natural wines, and I love them. But he's not doing natural wines because he wants to do natural wines. Don't use the spectrum. I think we are also doing natural wines. Our red wines in the higher level, they are unfiltered. We don't write it on it. We don't write natural wine on it. Why? We use cover crops in our vineyards. Our white wines are spontaneous fermentation. Our wines, of course, the Weissburgunder, special from the selection, is 1.5 years in the leaf. So we do a rough filtration. We already doing this thing, but it depends on calling it natural wines or just calling it wines. Yeah. And I think there's so many great colleagues who are doing a great job, like these unfiltered wines. And we all know the some heart is always beating for crazy stuff like that. And even if we're just trying other wines from other wineries, Chris is the one who's saying, okay, I think this one you're gonna like because it's like a bit crazy. And of course we all love it. And it's interesting for food pairings. But I think it's not completely focusation on the techniques or on the style. It's just like back to the roots, go back to the nature. More important is the vineyard than the vinification. In the vinification, you can do so many things that you cannot compare the vineyards anymore. We are so focused on our vineyards. I want to taste the difference between two Rieslings from different vineyards. That's interesting. And that's work which is already passion and close to nature. So I think many of our colleagues are doing it, that we're going back to the nature and listen to it. And it doesn't depend if it's unfiltered or we're writing natural wines on it. So there are great wines out of this one.
Totally. So, one thing that tends to happen, I think, is Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris sometimes just get lumped into the exact same category. People think about them as like the white Pinot varieties, and they just kind of get like lumped together. But for you as a sommelier, how do you think about the difference between Grauburgunder, Weissburgunder, Pinot Blanc, and Pinot Gris?
To separate in Germany, I think Grauburgunder or Pinot Gris comes with this harmony, with this less acidity, with this creamy texture. That's what everyone's got in mind from the consumers. And the fruitiness is more into the Weissburgunder. And if you're talking about the differences, I think this would be the main characters.
Totally. And then within kind of like that variety of Grauburgunder, how do you distinguish between Grauburgunder and, Pinot Gris from Alsace or Pinot Gris from Willamette Valley, where Christian studied previously? And Pinot Grigio. I think Pinot Grigio obviously is kind of the gray elephant in the room, right? It's the one that, certainly dominates most international markets. But in terms of distinguishing between each of those countries, representations of that grape, how do you kind of like find what makes Germany special there?
The balance. Also in Alsace and in the US, you've got extremely full-bodied fruitiness. I think it's also a bit more outstanding, and Germany is a bit more elegant. I think our Pinot Blanc and also our Pinot Gris is a bit more straighter, a bit more fine. I think it's linear. You can just walk a thin line on it. I think this would be exactly the best description. And this is what comes in your mind when you're thinking for a perfect match for food pairing. If it's too dominated, it's like, okay, there's going to be plump, or there's going to be difficult if there's too much acidity in the dish, too much fruitiness in the dish. But if you got a linear, straight, clear wine, which follows one straight line, this is going to be interesting, even in aging. And I think that's what makes Germany special, that we've got this elegant and fine and crispy way without being too straightforward.
So, I'm sure in your time working as a sommelier, as well as your time now representing Dautel, the emphasis has always been on Riesling in Germany. How do you get someone that maybe understands Germany through the prism of Riesling to venture out of their comfort zone and try something different, especially in the international market?
I remember I was working in a Michelin-star restaurant near Dautel in Stuttgart, and there was a table with 5 US businessmen, and of course they were like looking on my wine list with 800 wines. And I was like, okay, well, you're the sommelier, just go for it. But of course, it should be Riesling. And I'm a bit of a rebel. If a guest tells me I just want Riesling or I don't want that one, I do exactly the opposite. What I learned during my work is like I just give a small sip just to try it, and without saying any word of it. And they were still like, oh, that's amazing. Oh, yeah, great choice. Yeah, that looks like Riesling. I was like, yeah, that's Pinot Blanc, but I'm sorry. And I think everyone in the market, even we should be open. Of course, I think it's the same thing when we're talking to people. We should be open-minded to say hello to everybody, and not to say like, okay, no, I think I don't like you. I didn't talk to you at all, but I think I don't like you. It's the same thing with wine. Just be open-minded. That's so great about our business. We can try everything, and we can be open-minded by everything just by drinking a glass of wine.
What else should people watching this know about these 2 varieties, especially these varieties when planted in Germany?
Knowing about varieties is so hard to say. I think there's so many things. The easiest way to getting to know a variety is just to open a bottle. I remember my coach during my summer education, and he was like, okay, the most important thing is try new wines. And you get to learn more about Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris by tasting different Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris. Yeah. And then you can really reflect on the differences between the regions, between the soils, between the winemaker, for example. And I think this is the best way to getting to know these things. Play like 4 or 5 bottles of Pinot Blanc and just try along. It's the best experience you can ever have.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you.
This is great. I look forward to whenever you come to the US, when you come to Texas. When you come to visit me in Houston, we'll crack open a bottle of Texas Pet Nat. It'll be great. It'll be fun.
For sure. Promise.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. This has been great. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I'm really going to enjoy the rest of this bottle of Weissburgunder. Heike, how are you?
Just fine. Sitting here in a cool place where it's hot outside. Perfect.
Yeah, that's a beautiful background that you've got there. Way better than mine. What do we got there? What are some of the barrels that are behind you?
Okay, there's big barrels. We have big oak barrels, and we have lots of small oak barrels. And it's our ripening cellar, as I always say, because nothing happens here. No music, nothing. Nobody walks around and makes noise. And I just really like it down here. And it's cool in the summer, and it's kind of warm in the winter, so it's perfect.
That's your work from home space. You just head down there, a little bit of Zen, you're good to go.
Peace and quiet.
Well, this is really fun. I'm excited to do this. This is the 3rd conversation that we're having on behalf of SommCon. The focus for this, as people that are watching already know, is, an emphasis on grapes beyond Riesling. Germany's home to so many amazing varieties, and our goal here is to really highlight some of these other wines being made. And in our previous 2 conversations with winemakers in Württemberg and Mosel, we talked about white varieties, and now we're getting into the red varieties coming out of Germany, which is really, really fun. So, you work for Darting. Darting is in the Pfalz, and the wine that we're tasting right now is a Pinot Meunier, which in German is Schwarzriesling. Yeah?
That's right. And people always think Schwarzriesling is just a Riesling that is dark, but that's not the case. And to be quite honest, Pinot Meunier is one of our signature wines. It was the first wine that my brother planted himself in this winery. So it's like a little baby here in the winery. And it sells so well that we didn't even have it on our list. So it's fun to sell because it's something, as you said, something special that not everybody has. And I always say it's we do a Blanc de Noir, and the Blanc de Noir that has also a little bit of Pinot Meunier in it. So I say that's the champagne connection and combination. Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. And so you can talk a lot about it and tell people a lot of stories about it, and also can tell them that there's not a lot of Pinot Meunier as a red wine. There's some in Württemberg. It's not that easy to grow, so vintners don't like it that much here. Because
what makes it hard to grow?
It grows every which way. You know, we Germans like to be organized, and everything has to be straight. Yeah. So the Pinot Meunier doesn't do things like this, and then it gets a little bit of rot if you are not careful. So it's not that easy going, and but it makes a fabulous food wine, and it's spicy. It has fruit. It has a little bit of tannins. It's just perfect with a lot of food, and so I just love to sell it.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because the only or the only still red Pinot Meunier that I've ever had is yours, you know, and if we're looking at it in the glass here, not very opaque. It's you know, it almost looks like Pinot Noir in the glass, you know, I can read through it, you know, and there is that really spiced character that you're talking about there.
Lamb and all these oriental spices, and you know, if you have lentils and stuff like this, and so it's really good with things like that, and it has this kind of cuddly feeling to it. You know, you shouldn't tell people that you should drink a wine to make you feel better, but it's
I tell people that all the time. I tell myself that on an almost daily basis, so we're good to go.
So if you want to, you know, have a wine, you think, no, I don't want something too serious, but something really nice, it's a nice wine to have. And as I said, it goes great with food. And the other nice thing, the weather is getting hotter and hotter here in Germany, so it's also nice to have this a little bit out of the fridge. So you could have it in the summertime, you could just put it in the fridge for half an hour, and warm, it's getting on its own, right? But it's nice to start it off a little bit cooler, and then in the summertime it would also go with like a spicy fish and something like that. You can actually pair it with a lot of food, and could also have it on its own. The color is not that dark, but then I tell my customers here, I divide them in two categories, and it doesn't have anything to do with quality. It just has to do with either you want them dark and heavy, or you want them a little bit finer and perhaps a little bit lighter. With 13.5 alcohol, it's not really light, but it appears to be a little bit lighter. And then I tell them, if you drink all red wines in a dark glass, in a dark cellar, you have a very hard time trying to find which was which wine, right? But for a lot of people who drink red wine, the eye looks at the wine and think, gee, this is not very dark, so it's light. But I always tell them, you know, close your eyes and drink it with eyes closed, and you would just have a total different feeling. And then you imagine this lamb that you're going to have with it, and everything's good.
Yeah, this with roasted lamb sounds fantastic.
Yes.
So when I think about Pinot Noir versus Pinot Meunier, when I think about those two varieties, you know, my theory as a sommelier always goes back to Champagne, and I think about how Meunier is planted in the Vallée de Marne, you know, more along the river where it's maybe a little more humid. The grape tends to, you know, ripen in a slightly more like alluvial area. How do you think about the differences between those two grapes from a farming perspective? You already talked about how unruly Meunier can be, but are there other things there?
Harvested, it's one of the first things that we harvest, because we're always afraid that it gets rot, right? Okay. So you have to select, you have to go through and take the ones that you don't like out first. And then we harvest the Pinot Blanc, the Blanc de Noir, the grapes for the Blanc de Noir, we harvest a little bit earlier than the ones that we harvest for the red wine.
In the midst of harvest right now, right?
We harvested the Pinot Meunier already.
Wow.
So we harvested, it was a first thing that is in my book. So
wow.
it's the first grape that we harvested for Blanc de Noir. And I think yesterday we did for red wine. And for the red wine, we just put it in the fermentation tank. And then after a few weeks, then we do a malolactic fermentation until all these is over and done with. It's about 6 weeks time.
It's all about blending it and making sure that everything's just right.
It's always the same vintage, right? It's just different barrels. So the oak here is from Germany. It's right around the corner. And the guy who makes these barrels lives right in Bad Dürkheim. So it's really, it's really good. And you can go and see it, how the barrels are being made. And so sometimes I do tastings from the forest to the bottle.
That's really cool. That's cool. How would you compare German oak? I think most people probably think about a binary between French and American oak, but what's German oak in terms of like grain, in terms of like flavor profile? Like where are we at there?
Actually, we have a little bit of French oak. Buy some French oak every year. For me personally, I wouldn't think it's that much of a difference. I think it depends on the toasting and what you do with it and how you cut the wood. And it's also, I learned, it's the quality of the wood, of the tree, right? Where we live in the Rhine Valley, the trees grow too fast. So you have to go into the forest, so the rings are tighter together, and the quality of the tree, of the wood, then is getting better. So I think that makes more of a difference than basically where the tree is coming from.
So really, the faster a tree grows, the more tightly grained the staves will be.
No, the other way around. So the tree has to grow slower.
Okay.
Or the growing rings, I don't know how you call those, tighter together, right? But here where we live in the Rhine Valley, and we are right on the edge of it, so the vineyards grow really well, but the trees grow a little bit too fast. So they have to suffer a little bit more in the forest where the soil is not quite as good, and they grow a little bit slower.
Well, we've talked a little bit here about geography, but let's maybe paint the picture for people that are watching this recording with SommCon. We're in the Pfalz right now, which is a really unique area insofar as there's a wide range of kind of geological formations. You've already referenced, the forests that are nearby, which are an extension of the Vosges mountain range that we find in Alsace. How would you describe kind of the geography and the geology of Pfalz? What makes it kind of special?
Okay, we are in the Rhine Valley, right? We are right on the edge. So we have the, what really special is the weather here. And it's one of it's different from the soil, but because we have such a lot of sun, we have not enough rain, but we hope every year that we get enough. And then because we're on the edge of this forest, so
the Hart Hills,
so it's a Pfälzerwald that we call it. It's the biggest forest that we have in Germany. So it's we get the cool air at night, and we have the sun, and we have the soil that keeps the heat quite well. And we have limestone, we have marl, we have sandy stone soil. So it's we have Riesling sites, we have sites that are better for Pinot Noir. So we can really grow a lot of different varieties, and they all do well.
Yeah, and I think, you're talking about a wide range of different soil types. And that's kind of reflected in Darting itself, right? Because as a winery, you all produce a wider range of different wines, right?
You made me count all our different varieties because I thought, gee, how many do we have actually? And we have 20.
Wow.
So we have 20 different varieties, and I did a count of the whites and the reds, and we have 10 whites and we have 10 reds. So we do about 40% of red and we do 60% of white. And we have a lot of Riesling, which I find really exciting because the terroir that we have, you can just reflect so well in the Riesling. But then when I think about and I like to drink Riesling, but then when I think about all these other varieties that we have, from Muscatella, Saint Laurent, then naturally a lot of Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, then we have Scheurebe, we have Grauburgunder, Weissburgunder, Chardonnay. So we have all these different varieties. And I think it's really exciting to have the right wine with food. So I just love pairing food with wine. And for me, it's if you have a great Riesling, a fabulous Riesling, and you have to find the right food with it. But basically, for a really great Riesling, you should have it on its own because it's so fabulous and you just want to find the fine differences and why you like it so much. But if you have the right variety with the, let's say, Muscatella, and you have a Muscatella you don't say pumpkin, right? You say squash.
I mean, we have pumpkins. We use pumpkin mostly for spiced lattes at Starbucks. That's
squash,
normally
right?
what we use
them for. Muscatella with squash, or I have Muscatella mushrooms and or green asparagus, and it just goes so well together. I think this is really exciting too. The wine might not have all this terroir that a Riesling has, but it's just the combination of the food and the wine that can be really, really exciting. And this is what I really think a little bit of the difference between a Pinot Meunier and a Pinot Noir is that the Pinot Meunier might not be as big a wine as a Pinot Noir can be, right? But it's just so nice with food. That I think it just, it doesn't have to be a huge wine. It just has to be a really nice wine. And people feel really good drinking it. And they don't have to think, gosh, why is this a wonderful wine? Because it just is, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I think is the nice thing about all these different varieties. It's sometimes a little bit difficult in our winery because we have to sell then 20 different, not just 20 different varieties, but every variety has 2 or 3 wines to go. So it's sometimes really exhausting. And
that's your job, right? You've referenced your brother Helmut a couple of times, but you're in charge of export for the winery, yeah?
But when somebody comes and says, we have this wedding and we want this and this, and so the first thing I ask, what kind of food, and it's young people, you sell them something else, and if they are an older couple or, it's a second marriage, you do something else, and for students, right? So it's fabulous that you then have the right wine for this couple. So I think it's great when they come back and say, you sold us the wine for the wedding and it was just so much fun and the wine went so well and everybody was happy with it. I think, oh, gee, that's nice. And I told them to drink this wine and then it was the right choice, right?
Yeah.
So you can do that if you have a lot of different varieties. I personally tell people when they come here to have a wine tasting, I do a lot of wine tastings. Let's say I do 8 different wines. And I says, there are wineries where you only drink Riesling. But that can be exciting as well because you then drink different terroir and different quality levels. And so that can be really exciting as well. But here you drink 8 wines and you have 8 different varieties. So that's exciting too.
It's interesting, you talk about all these different varieties and all these different, soil types that exist in the Pfalz, but do you find that certain varieties do better on certain types of soil? Do you kind of make sure that certain vineyards are planted on specific types of soil?
Yeah, we do that. My dad used to craft plants. So we did about, we concentrated on this crafting business. So he knew really which variety to plant into which soil. Doesn't work all the time because you have to have the soil just at the time that you need this variety. But and I sometimes get to say, I want Muscatella. Can you please have Muscatella? Or can you please be now at a level with the Pinot Meunier that I'm happy with, right? Mm-hmm. But then our outdoor guy says, no, you can't put this variety in this soil. So yeah, you have to know about the soil, and you have to know about which soil the variety needs to put this variety in the right place, or best, and put it in the right place.
Yeah. I know we're drinking red wine right now, but earlier in our very first conversation, we were drinking a Scheurebe, and I'd love to ask you, as someone that produces a Scheurebe, what are your thoughts on that grape variety?
I love it.
Yeah. And
our Spätlese is sold out at the moment, and it's really hard for me, because Scheurebe you make it sweet. Mostly we make it sweet because we have dry Sauvignon and Muscatella. So on the aromatic variety side, we are good with dry, but Scheurebe is always sweet here. And it goes with so many things if you really want it. If it's really fresh, you can have it just on its own. After it's aged a little bit, and even white wine can age really well, you can then have it with hard cheese. So if you have it with an aged hard cheese and just this little bit of salt of cheese with it, it's perfect. The only thing about Scheurebe also is you have to have the right site for Scheurebe, otherwise it gets some kind of virus and doesn't like it there and gets cold feet or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you can have this kind of Scheurebe that is straight, and then you can have this Scheurebe that is very big, and so you can do a lot of things with Scheurebe. And I think a Scheurebe Spätlese with a lukewarm apple pie is perfect.
Ooh, that sounds good.
So you can.
There's the expression in the U.S. They say there's nothing as American as apple pie. That's an expression here. So nothing as American as a Spätlese Scheurebe. That's the move.
Scheurebe, Sunday afternoon, and you have the apple pie, and you're set.
Very good. I love it. Cool. So we've tasted your Pinot Meunier. I think this would be a great time for us to jump into the Riesling, which is a Pinot Noir, also coming from Germany. This one's coming from Boden, so we're a little further south than Pfalz. Boden is one of the southern regions, which along with Württemberg kind of make up the Swabia, this southern region of Germany known for red wine production. And I know that you make Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir as well, so it would be really fun to get your thoughts on kind of tasting this Pinot from another producer in another region. What are your thoughts?
I got a bottle from him, and we tasted it. And, we have apprentices and we have students, and we all eat together at lunch, and we get a lot of wine given to us. We are everybody that comes, I don't know why, gives us a bottle of wine. So we drink a lot of wine at lunch, and then just kind of say, okay, good, bad, wouldn't drink this, whatever. And so I gave these guys this bottle of wine, and funny enough, the young guys didn't like this wine, but the older ones all liked it. So it's what I think about this wine has a little bit more tannins than the Pinot Meunier, not necessarily more than our Pinot Noirs, but that's what I always say, you are not born to like tannic wines, right? It's something that you have to appreciate and that you have to learn about. And isn't it wonderful that you can learn about wine, and you still can learn in 10 years. So it's something else that you can experience all the time. And then I think I like the tannins in this wine. And I was thinking what I would have it with. And so we're discussing that. And one of the guys said I would have it on its own, who liked it a lot. The young guy said, no, I can't drink this because I just think they're too young to appreciate that. They have to learn. This is the reason they are here with us. And so I know that Riesling does everything in oak. And so I think it's a little bit not heavier than ours, but it has definitely, it's a little bit drier than we would do ours, and it has a little bit more oak. I think if it would sit in my shelf for another couple of years, that would be perfect.
Which, you know, you're bringing up something that I think is really important whenever we discuss German red wine, which is the use of oak. And you already referenced at your winery where you source your oak from, you get a little bit from France, you get some from, you know, the forest nearby in Germany. But, you know, oak usage is something that's kind of varied over time with both white wine and with red wine. And I know at Darting, you ferment all of your reds in stainless steel, and then élevage is kind of a mix of new or used. But, you know, there are many producers that are using almost exclusively new oak, and we're seeing a movement towards maybe more oak usage with red wine and less oak usage with white wine. I'm curious, at Darting specifically, what's kind of the approach to oak, and do you see that kind of in line with everything else that's going on in Germany?
I think this is the case, that in our winery, all the red wine goes into oak, big, small oak for longer time, at least a year, 18 months, 24 months is more like it. And then the ones that only go in little ones, they stay there sometimes 3-4 years. So yes, I think oak does fabulous things with red wine. It just ripens them, it softens them, it gives them a different taste. But what we do here is we think oak supports the wine and helps the wine ripen, have a longer life, gets a little bit more of the roasty aromas, sometimes perhaps a little bit of vanilla. I prefer the roasted chocolatey aromas. But you don't want to bite on a piece of wood, right?
No,
you don't want to do that. So it's just to find the right balance to give this wine the support of the oak and have just this time in oak that makes the wine just more drinkable, more enjoyable, have a longer lifespan, and just I think a natural material gives just the wine such fabulous taste, and I think it's really nice. You know, I didn't drink red wine till about I hit 40, so that's a few years back, because I always think it made me tired, and I didn't really appreciate it. But I always like to smell it. I just think red wine smells so nice. Yeah. But as I get older, and I'm getting older, I really appreciate the red wine, and I also appreciate what it does for food. And so this is what I think, you know, it's something that you have to learn. And we as a winery, or my brother as a winemaker, learns as well, right? We built this cellar in 2000, and since we built this cellar and changed our whole wine production from stainless steel to oak, and give these oak barrels the best environment that they can have here, with the temperature and with the humidity. And we had an increase in red wine sales of 500%.
Wow.
So we went from 11% of red wine to now 40% of red wine.
How much of that growth was the result of the international market versus the domestic market?
It's a lot of it is the domestic market. We now sell quite a bit of red wine to the international market. It's amazing. I always can't believe that they actually buy so much German red wine. But on the other side, I really think that, I tell my people here, you know, we increase the red wine sales, but it's not that the Germans drink more red wine. No, the Germans drink more German red wine. Because in former times, you know, people would come here and say, yeah, Heike, yes, we buy your white wine are perfect and we really like it, but red wine, you know, we buy in France and in Spain and in Portugal. And now they buy their red wine here. So this is very nice for us to hear. And because I sit with customers every day, so I sell wine every day. When somebody tells me something, you know, we have a very short way. I don't eat here, but I just go and tell my brother and all the other guys there and say, listen, this is the third time that I heard that. Do we think we could do this and that and that?
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes I even do it, but it's so ways to change things or to think about things that we could change or do different. And so it's this learning experience, and it's very nice when you see the success.
So do you think that the fact that Germany in general, whether it's the result of just stylistic, you know, differences or, you know, a warming of the climate, there's a movement towards more extraction?
Yes.
Do you think that's in any way, you know, the result? Do you think that the increase in German wine consumption of German red wine is the result of that increase in extraction, or is it more just Germans are appreciating what they have in their own backyard?
No, I definitely think that Germans learned about red wine. We now have international varieties here. We have Cabernet, we have Syrah, we now planted Malbec.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
German Malbec. What's the German name for Malbec?
If you would talk to me next year or the year after, perhaps we could taste that. So we now have Malbec. And so we have all these different varieties. The climate is changing. Sometimes, you know, you think, why is it changing so much? But it's changing, it's getting warmer. The warming period is longer, right? We know about techniques, sometimes old techniques, but we know more about making red wine. We have the right materials here. We are using barrels. You know, in Germany and Austria, you haven't used barrels for the last 2 centuries, but we started using barrels in the 70s. So it's fairly new for us, but as we learn and every year you perhaps make a mistake, but then you do something good the next year. So you learn by doing.
Yeah.
It's like kids, you learn by doing, right? And so it's really good, and it's fun to work with wine that way. So totally. What happens with our Malbec, right?
You know, as each of these regions, you know, continues to kind of identify what its respective strength is, whether it's, you know, Württemberg and Boden, you know, leaning more into those, you know, indigenous varieties, or, you know, more traditional varieties, we'll say like Lemberger, you know, or Trollinger. You know, what do you see Pfalz's kind of identifying kind of characteristic being in the years to come?
I think the Pfalz has a tradition of Riesling and Pinot Noir, and that stays, but it's also very open to other things. And I think we have to stay open, because we don't know what's going to happen with the climate in like 10, 20, 30 years. So we have to stay open for new varieties, for new techniques, because we have to.
Yeah.
You know, we might not have another option than to stay open. And the people here in the Pfalz, they are really very open, because we have a lot of tourists here, and we live from all these tourists, and you know, they tell us it's so nice that you can just sit with other people on one table, nobody cares. And now in these very difficult times at the moment, it's difficult for them as well, but normally the people here in the Pfalz are really open. And
well, you know, I want to thank you so much, Heike. Thank you for having us. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Look forward to hopefully seeing you here in the United States sometime soon, whenever travel opens up.
Yes, I hope to come. To be quite honest, was happy that this year didn't happen, because, you know, it's not a nice time wherever you are in this world, but we all do our best, and this is a great way of you to do it, and do
it virtually.
Yes, thank you.
Well, big thanks to Heike for that last recording, and big thanks to all of the winemakers that took time out of, you know, their busy harvest to chat with me today. Thank you to SomCon for putting on today's conference, as well as Wines of Germany for sponsoring this panel discussion. You can find my podcast, By the Glass, anywhere you source your audio content on Spotify and Apple. And if you want to learn more about these unique varieties, you can go to Wines of Germany's website, which is www.germanwineusa.com. Again, thank you to these winemakers. Thank you to SomCon. Thank you to Wines of Germany. My name's Chris. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next SomCon conference.